friends, we have a very important reading guide to get ourselves into now. Uh, Most of this reading guide is going to be your notes. So your notes for this unit, you got them right in front of you. Make sure you pay good attention to this video. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to make sure that you can really fully understand the stuff for the anatomy of Unit 3. So let's go ahead and dive right on into it. First question is, what is a serous membrane? This is also known as a serosa. Basically what we have is we've got a simple squamous epithelial tissue that's resting on top of an areolar connective tissue. What we're going to kind of have is we're going to kind of have two little sacs or two little layers that acts as a sac, and it's going to protect our organs and allow them to slide across one another without friction. So that's going to be extremely important in anatomy. This is considered to be a wet membrane, and the two layers of the serous membrane is we have a parietal layer and we have a visceral layer. The parietal layer is going to be on the outside, and the visceral layer is going to be the inner layer. So that inner layer is actually going to attach itself to the whatever organ we're dealing with. The outer layer is going to be what's going to be touching the other parietal layers of other organs, and then you've got the serous fluid in between, which is going to allow it to be frictionless. So it says, what are serous membranes separated by? They're separated by serous fluid. So that serous fluid is secreted by both layers to the inner portion. So now we've got this wet, lubricated area on the inside that doesn't allow for friction. We have a number of locations of serous membranes. The three that we're mainly going to be focusing on in this class is the peritoneum, which is going to be found in the abdomen, the pleura, which is going to be found in the lungs, and the pericardium, which is found in the heart. Okay, so notice, here's my parietal layer right here, this outermost layer. The red area is my parietal layer. That's the part that's the outermost. You also have the visceral pleura here, okay, pleura because it's on the lungs. The visceral pleura here, which is the innermost layer. And then this pleural space inside here, this is where you're going to find the serous fluid. Here's my heart. So I've got a visceral pericardium, a parietal pericardium on the outside, and then you've got serous fluid on the inside. Notice these two are actually touching each other, and so because you've got that serous fluid in between, it's not going to allow for any rubbing. So just remember, parietal's on the outside, visceral's on the inside. That's going to be a really important concept for you to remember, so I would write that down somewhere. Parietal on the outside, visceral on the inside, serous fluid in between. In terms of what a body membrane is, body membranes are protective layers that cover surfaces. Okay, that's the main idea. They're going to form protective sheets that's going to protect our body. Two types of membranes. We have epithelial membranes and connective membranes. Our epithelial membranes are made up of epithelial tissues. Okay, that's going to include mucous membranes, serous membranes, cutaneous membranes. Our connective membranes, you guessed it, are made up of connective tissue, and that's going to be our synovial membranes. Okay, what's another name for the cutaneous membranes? Skin. Okay, cutaneous membrane. My cutaneous membrane is getting a burn. That's just a fancy term for skin. What are mucous membranes? These are going to have epithelial tissues that rest on loose connective tissues. These are going to line all of our body cavities and that are open to the exterior, and its job is to absorb and secrete. And these are wet membranes as well. Our cutaneous membrane, as I mentioned earlier, is our skin. It has a stratified squamous epithelial tissue which rests on dense connective tissue. Sorry about that. It is a dry membrane because it's exposed to the air. Our synovial membranes are found around our joints. This is the only connective membrane, and it also is a wet membrane because we don't want our bones to creak along one another as they are moving. Okay, so that is a synovial membrane. Here's the synovial membrane right here. Okay, we've got synovial fluid, which separates these bones from each other so that there's not a lot of grinding bone on bone and all that, which we don't want. The word integument means covering. Skin is essential because it keeps the insides in and the outsides out. Functions of the skin, there's a ton of functions. These are some main ones. It's going to protect deep tissues. It's going to keep UV rays out. It's going to keep bacteria out. It's going to help our. It's going to keep our organs from drying out. Another fun function of the skin is that it actually synthesizes vitamin D. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to eat vitamin D because you go out into the sun and your skin's going to make vitamin D. The two outermost layers of the skin, you've got the epidermis and the dermis. Okay, the epidermis is made up of stratified squamous epithelial cells, which are capable of keratinizing. And we're going to discuss the definition of keratinizing in just a moment. Okay, it's important to understand though that those are epithelial cells for the epidermis. The dermis, however, is connective tissue, dense connective tissue. And so those are actually two different types of tissue layers that are sitting right on top of each other. Now, when those two layers rub together, what's going to happen is it's going to cause the epidermis to separate from the dermis. That area is going to fill with fluid, and guess what? You've got a blister. Now, keratinizing, as I promised you a moment ago, is where your skin becomes hard and tough. Now, that's actually something that we want to happen. We want our skin to be nice and hard and tough. Below the dermis, you're going to find the hypodermis, and this is subcutaneous tissue that's going to anchor your skin to underlying organs. It's also going to serve as a shock absorber and an insulator for your body. The five strata of the epidermis, these are the five layers basically of your epidermis. From the outside in, you have the stratum corneum. On the outermost portion is the stratum corneum. Then you've got the stratum lucidum, the stratum granulosum, the stratum spinosum, and the stratum basal at the very bottom. Okay, that's the base. Okay, so the base is at the very bottom. Now, a special note: the stratum lucidum is only found in thick skin. Okay, so your thick skin is going to be found on the palms of your hands and on the soles of your feet. That's where you find thick skin. Now, how in the world are we all going to remember the five strata in order? Corneum, lucidum, granulosum, spinosum, and basal. I like to use this little acronym here, CLGSB. Chuck likes grabbing some, and then something that starts with B. I don't know. I bet you can come up with something fun. Maybe Chuck likes grabbing some bears, some teddy bears. Wouldn't that be fun? Or Chuck likes grabbing some, what's something else that starts with B? Bread. Maybe Chuck's going to make a sandwich and he would like some bread. So Chuck likes grabbing some bread. Or anything else that you might be able to come up with that starts with a B. There we go. There it is. Fun stuff. Lots of stuff. Okay. Which strata is the thickest? Okay. The stratum corneum is the thickest. That's the outermost layer. It's going to be 20 to 30 cell layers thick, and it's going to make up 3/4 of your epidermal thickness. Now, the funny part about this, I don't know that's really funny, but whatever. The funny part about this is that most of it is actually dead cell remnants, okay? That's been filled with keratin. That keratin's going to make it strong and hardy, and yeah, okay, that's that. How long does it take for me to gain a new epidermis? Okay, I know that if I do a little scratcheroo, okay, what's going on? Millions of skin cells are flying everywhere. Isn't that delicious? Okay, so yeah. Now my skin cells are out there for you to breathe. The stratum corneum, you get a brand new one, okay, every 25 to 45 days. So roughly a month, a little over a month, you're going to have a brand new stratum corneum. Okay, that means that the cells below are dividing, pushing up, pushing up, pushing up, so that when others flake off, you get new ones that come in behind it. What's the purpose of melanin? What is melanin? Melanin is actually a pigment that lives in your skin, and it is going to protect the nuclei of the stratum basal cells from UV radiation. That thus protects their DNA. Okay. Now, we know that if we get enough melanin build up, that's going to be what causes our skin to become darker. So if I go tanning, then I'm going to get darker skin because I'm going to have more of a buildup of melanin. Okay. Also, if you have a freckle or if you have a mole, you've got a lot of melanin that is concentrated in one spot. You got two areas of the dermis. You've got the papillary region, which is going to contain dermal papillae. Now, what is dermal papillae? You're probably asking. Dermal papillae is actually little ridges which make up your fingerprints, okay? That's what it is. Dermal papillae, fun way to say fingerprints, okay? In this region, you're also going to find Messner's corpuscles. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your hand, and I want you to rub it lightly across something, okay? Just rub it lightly across something. You can feel, you can feel whatever you're rubbing across. Your Messner's corpuscles are picking up that feeling, okay? Now, your reticular region is below the papillary region. It's going to contain blood vessels, sweat and oil glands, and Pacinian corpuscles. Now, I'm going to say the word. I'm going to say a word, and you think of the first thing that comes to mind. Here's your word: Pacinian. What came to mind? Oh, the Pacific Ocean, of course. Well, what do I know about the Pacific Ocean? Oh, it's deep. Okay. Well, in the Pacinian corpuscles are going to be your deep pressure receptors. So what I want you to do now is take your hand or take your arm or something like that and push on it. Okay. You feel that deep pressure. Okay. That's going to be your Pacinian corpuscles, which pick that up. So Messner's corpuscles is just a nice light touch. Okay. I can feel my Messner's corpuscles. There's my Pacinian corpuscles picking up deep pressure. Fun stuff. Okay. What are dermal papillae? We've already mentioned that. So that's your fingerprints. Okay. Dermal papillae are fingerprints. That's a fun way to say fingerprints. What is the purpose of the reticular layer? The reticular layer is going to contain your blood vessels, sweat and oil glands, and Pacinian corpuscles. It's also going to contain phagocytes, which if you have little bacteria which make their way down through your skin and somehow they made their way through that mechanical barrier, those phagocytes are going to start to attack and eat any intruder that comes in. Why do patients in hospital beds have to be rotated every 2 hours? This is to prevent ulcers or bed sores, okay? Essentially what's going to happen here is if you are laying down in one spot for too long, you can restrict blood flow to that area, which can give you bed sores. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I go to sleep every night, and well, I don't have to be rotated. Somebody doesn't have to come in and rotate me. Your body naturally understands this, and you're going to get slightly uncomfortable during the night when you have blood flow restriction, and you're going to naturally turn yourself slightly so that you can not get bed sores. It only takes a couple of hours for a patient to develop bed sores. Three pigments in the skin. You've got melanin, keratin, and oxygen. Melanin is going to be the only pigment that's produced by the skin. Keratin is found in different plants like sweet potatoes, carrots, all that fun stuff. That gives you a yellowy orange pigment. And then oxygen, which is bound to hemoglobin, can give you kind of a reddish pinkish color. Now, we want to know what causes the coloring of a bruise. When blood escapes from circulation and builds up in your tissue spaces, that is a bruise. Where are sebaceous glands found, and what do they secrete? Sebaceous glands are found all over your skin, except on the palms of your hand and the soles of your feet. What were those again? Oh yeah, thick skin, okay? So you'll find sebaceous glands everywhere except for your thick skin areas, and sebum is what is secreted, and that's just a natural body oil. Sebum is what is secreted. For the sweat glands, state where they are found and what kind of products they secrete. Okay, you've got a couple of different kinds of sweat glands. Okay, number one, you've got eccrine glands, and eccrine glands are found all over your body, and they're going to just secrete regular old sweat. Okay, and that's important for temperature regulation. If you remember back to chemistry class, we remember that as water evaporates, it's an endothermic process, and thus it cools down the surroundings. Okay, same thing on our body. When I sweat, I have that liquid on my body. As the liquid evaporates, endothermic cools down my body. Okay. Now we also have apocrine glands as well, and apocrine glands are found in our axillary areas, which we remember from our regional terms, which is the armpit and also the genital regions. These are going to not only secrete sweat, but it's also going to secrete fatty acids and proteins, and when the sweat dries and the fatty acids and proteins are left behind, it's going to cause an odor when it dries. So that's apocrine glands. Purposes of hair. Why do we even have hair? Protection. Okay, that's why we have hair to begin with, is to protect ourselves. Okay, it guards the head against bumps. It shields the eyes in the forms of eyelashes. Okay, and also our eyebrows. Okay, it keeps things from dripping down into our eyes. Okay, it keeps foreign particles out of our respiratory tract, i.e., our nose hairs. Okay, these little fellas right in there are going to keep things from getting into our respiratory tract. Okay, let's look at the parts of hair. What do we have? We have a root. Your hair root is going to be found underneath the skin. Okay, just like roots of plants are found underneath the ground, the roots of hair are found underneath the skin. The follicle is the flexible layered epithelial structure which houses the root of the hair. Okay, so you got your root underneath the skin. The follicle is like a little bulb that surrounds it. We also have the hair bulb matrix, and the matrix is the growth zone. Okay, that's where you're going to have rapidly dividing cells, which are going to continuously push the hair out into the outer area. Okay, and the shaft is the hair portion that's above the skin. So all of these other things are underneath the skin. The shaft is the part that is out of the skin. Okay. Each and every hair on your entire body is attached to a little tiny muscle called an erector pili. Okay. When you get cold or when you get frightened, your erector pili muscles are all going to contract at the same time. And when it does, you've got a hair that's just kind of hanging out, whatever. When it contracts, the hair comes up and sticks up on its end. Okay. That's what goosebumps are. That's how you get goosebumps, is your hair is attached to this erector pili. It's going to contract, and when it does, it's going to cause that hair to stand on end. Random fact of the day. This is talking about why we get goosebumps. And okay, so funny story. I paused it because I had a visitor come in, and I have no idea where I was. So here we go again. Goosebumps are created when erector pili. Okay, I've already said that. I know. Okay, so here's what it was. When an animal becomes cold, the hair will stand up on its edge to create like a current of air that actually that actually will insulate the animal's skin and warm them up. Or when the hair stands on end, it actually makes the animal look slightly larger, and so then it acts as a defense mechanism in that way. Um, we don't really use those methods for us, but we still have that mechanism built in. So that's your rando fact of the day. Um, Continuing on with the visible parts of the, or excuse me, just the parts of the nail. The body of the nail, that is the visible portion. Okay. The root of the nail is where it is underneath the skin. Okay. The nail bed is a stratum basal layer that's found underneath the nail. So if you were to rip off your nail, the skin that's underneath that would be the nail bed. The nail matrix is a thickened part of the nail bed that is responsible for nail growth. So if you were to lose a fingernail, if the nail matrix is intact, you will regrow another fingernail. However, if the nail matrix is no longer intact, you'll never grow another fingernail again. Okay. A cuticle is the thick nail skin fold that's found around your fingernails. Okay, I've already mentioned this. Is the nail likely to grow back? Well, I guess there was a story that goes along with that. Basically, if the nail matrix is gone, you're not going to lose, or you're not going to grow a nail back. Okay, that is the end of the reading guide. So just make sure that you study that. Remember the Unit 3 reading guide, the whole thing. That's the majority of your notes. Okay, the notes that we're going to cover in class mainly deal with skin conditions. So all of this stuff is covered on your quizzes and tests. Make sure that you study it. Make sure that you have all the proper answers written down. And good luck, folks.